round 2 of the AMS Oz Porsche series as we watch Baker just loop it round at the that section just before the S's. My name's Stairs, I'll be your commentator tonight, and joining me in the commentary box is Nether.
Glad to be here, mate. Thank you for the invitation. It's big shoes to fill. Madbird's position is normally alongside you, but more than happy to give it a crack in his absence.
And last week he took to the racing track, so it was just me on my own. So,
yes.
But unable to make it today due to real-life commitments. So here we are just at the tail end of practice, hoping that we'll jump into qualifying soon. They've just reset the server because there were some laggy issues going on, we're told by our man on the ground, Goofball Antics, or Heath Dixon as he's known in this server.
Yes, Heath Dixon. It definitely seems to be a little bit more stable since the server reset has occurred. We had a few cars that looked like they were vanishing into walls and then all of a sudden appearing on track as if nothing had actually happened in the first place. But it's certainly better for our viewing pleasure and for yours.
We certainly did. Well, Greg Tyre has been the man so far in qualifying who set the fastest time. He's in the 10.6s. But it's a very closely fought. The times you're seeing on screen aren't actually as close as what we saw during the actual practice session. We had several cars within half a second of each other, down to I think the top 8 were within 0.5 of a second. So it certainly promises to be quite a closely fought battle today.
And I think the whole field was actually, aside from a few of the latecomers, was covered by about 2.5 seconds. So quite a close spread for all the drivers who are concerned. Some drivers, in some cases, even split by hundredths or even thousandths of a second. It's definitely very tight. That's
exactly right. Well, who would you be your pick, Nether, on the limited running that you have seen, the sort of 20 minutes of practice that we've watched thus far? Do you think that there's anyone who stands out above the rest for tonight's victory?
I wouldn't put it past probably about a handful of drivers who could take these 1 or 2 races tonight. Boke and Tara are definitely up the top of the timesheets now. So
oh yeah, Boke's just surpassed Tara. Sorry to cut across.
He has by nearly 2/10. I would dare say that the guys at the sharp end at the minute have definitely shown some pace in practice, so they would probably start at the pointy end of the field and be the favourites for it. But we have seen there have been, as of last week, there were a couple of incidents for discussion after the race, so I wouldn't put it past me that maybe somebody from a little bit further down the field might be able to sneak through and take an unexpected win should a few people trip over themselves.
Well, yes, these guys are all fairly new to racing each other. Don't know how much experience they bring from other categories, but this series is only in its second round, and the server seems to have doubled in size since last week.
Absolutely.
So there's going to be those sorts of uncertainties creeping into the people's minds as they go around on the first lap, because they don't know how fast or slow some of these drivers are and where they brake, and whether they'll make a dive from 2 or 3 car lengths back or not.
That's absolutely right, and there are a couple of passing opportunities at this circuit where you can come from a fair way back and still have a fairly good chance of making the corner. Turn 1 springs to mind as probably the most prime passing opportunity, and the other opportunity now is, as we're looking around the circuit, is down into the Dandenong Road end part of the course, which is after you come off the back straight through the little S-kink to the 90-degree left-hander. That's the Dandenong Road end of the course.
Absolutely right. We were just on board with Philip Boke, top of the timesheets at the moment, as he's just exited to the pits. But we'll try and get an onboard here so we can... Here we go. Here's Voda. So he currently 11th place, is just coming into the back section at the moment. And looking like he's on for a PB. 2.7 seconds up on his best in this particular session. So...
we're now watching him at the Dandenong end. We're now watching him at the Dandenong end road of the course. Actually, he's just exited.
He's exited. Let's find someone who's on a. Oh, hang on. Have we lost? Everyone's back.
I think we may have just gone
qualifying
started. Qualifying.
Yep.
Yes.
So we wait with bated breath. Sorry to cut across you there. We wait with bated breath to see who the first car out, and it is English, is it?
I think it's one of
he's
the
got himself lost.
Sport cars that have come out first. They look like they're rolling
the
first.
Rainbow-coloured car. I don't know what's going on, but it's crashed into the exit, into the side of the pit entry, and has finally, on its 3rd attempt, made it into the pit lane. So a bit of chaos there to begin our qualifying session off, as they're all stack up at the end of the pit lane.
Yeah, and who's the man that's at the front? Looks like it's one of the Bob Jane T-Mark cars that's at the head of the pack, waiting to go out onto track first. Who is that? That's Johnny at the very head of the queue, and looks like it's followed by Pablo.
Yes, Pablo there in second. One of the 33 cars. We've got two 33 cars, confusingly. That's either Schultz or Kingshot behind him, and then an absolute melee of cars behind.
Yeah, have a look at this stacking up in the pits. They're all eager to get out.
Green light.
The green light is gone, and there's an absolute gaggle of cars trying to find their way out. Will they all get out unscathed? And more importantly, given it's such a large field and such a short circuit, will they all be able to give each other enough room without tripping over each other and spoiling someone's lap? They've only got 30 minutes in this session.
Yeah, that's the poignant point. I mean, 30 minutes should be quite a decent amount of time. If I was there, I'd probably just wait it out and maybe...
there was a very close coming together in the pit lane there between Baker and Tara. Baker was in the lane and just managed to avoid contact in the pit lane with Baker. They've got out unscathed, but just a little bit close from my view over the pit lane is from the commentary box.
Right now, I'd want to be in Johnny's shoes up front on track, because he's the one who's got clear track all up ahead of him. Everyone else is not really sure whether the car in front of them is going to be slowing down or backing up because of the car in front of them, and it just all becomes a bit of a headache. Pablo is in the second best position because he's got a nice gap in front of him as we go, as we look at Jono exiting the final corner on his out lap to start his first qualifying lap. So let's see what he has for us.
So he's down and coming down to turn one, and look, there's a couple of guys coming out of the pit lane there. They'll have to be careful that they don't mess up any of the guys who are on a hot lap now. So Johnny into this left-hander at turn number one. Just leaving a little bit on the table on the exit curb, and into this turn 2-3 chicane. Just a little lock up there into turn two. He missed the apex.
No need to push it too hard at this early stage. It's really just about getting a banker here, and Brian Walsh there. Is he going to give him a toe? It doesn't look like he has. He's just going to stay to the inside and let Johnny go politely by on the right-hand side.
Yep. Now coming up to one of the trickier sections as he goes under the Falcon Tyres bridge there. This section can get a little bit tricky as you come down the gears and flick left, then right, and then left again, straighten up for the 90-degree left-hander at Dandenong Road. There's been plenty of accidents there over the course of time. Wouldn't put it past me if there's a handful more there today.
Very tidy lap from Johnny so far. Obviously, we're not sure how hard he's pushing, but he's certainly got a very clean line through all of these corners. So we wait with bated breath to see what the very first marker set down is, and it's an 11.2. So that is our first benchmark. Pablo and Kingshot have gone across over a second back, and we look back towards some of the other cars on track. We've got
Thomas has just gone to the top, so he's gone clear by nearly two tenths.
That's right, and who else we got? Schultz just crossing the line.
Brock Harvey just also slotting into second there, not that far away from Thomas's time.
And
Tara now to the top by some considerable margin.
And Baker slots in about 7th, so that's the first gaggle of cars across the line. We've got 9 people who've qualified so far. We've got another one of the short shift motorsport cars, I believe, number 27. And Aaron Thomas goes... No, sorry. Everything's... no, Greg Tara is still up there. Aaron Thomas is in second place. Yep. Harvey
Johnny's currently looking at to improve his lap time on this circulation. So coming to the line, we might see him jump up by about 2 tenths if he stays at this pace. And no, he lost a little bit in the last sector there.
And Walsh just off down at the back near Dandenong Road there, so that's not going to be a good lap for him. As we go and we're looking at Schultz now going out of the final corner. See what he's got. He's in 6th currently. If he can improve, indeed he does. Up to 2nd, not bad.
Not a bad time at all, and still Tara looks like the man to beat at the moment. Slightly slower than what the quickest time was in qualifying, although in warm-up. Although having said that, he's now gotten back into a 10.4, Greg Tara, so that's more representative of the times we saw in practice just a few minutes ago before the server came down. And with the light fuel loads that they're probably running, I would dare say it's probably not the lowest time that we will see in this session.
Yeah, we'll see obviously a few different strategies with how people approach this qualifying session, as Greg Tara on the first sector of this lap is 2.5 tenths up on his best, so looking to improve. He's looking possibly at a sub 10 if he continues to take out time on his best lap at that rate. But as I was about to say, people approaching this qualifying session in a myriad of different ways. Possibly going on multi-lap runs to just get the tyres in, and others maybe just going for one-shot runs to see if they can do the best lap they can on the first lap on those tyres.
We just had some word from the pit lane as well that Brian Walsh, the other entry of the Bob Jane T-Mart 777 cars, having some issues, so they've parked that car for the moment. We're hoping to see him out on track again soon. But also similar for one of the Vortier Rennsport cars, Stuart D. He's also having some trouble as well. So those two cars are yet to turn a lap in qualifying. We're actually yet to see them make an appearance in the qualifying garages, so we'll hopefully see them soon, but a little bit disappointing. But there's still plenty of time for them to get themselves out on track.
Well, while you were talking there, Greg Tara did improve his lap time by 4 tenths of a second. Only just missed out on a 109, and I would certainly suggest, as we look at Johnny, to see whether he can improve. I don't think he can, because he was down by about a second, or 2 seconds indeed. As I forget to finish my thought there, Greg Tara. Is probably got a 109 in him in this session. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't, because this is only 7 minutes into this session, or 7.5 minutes into this session, and he's already that close. I'm sure that there's more time in that yet to come.
Absolutely, Stairs. I think a 109 definitely is on the cards if Tara can string all 3 sectors together. Just taking a look at some of his times, he's been faster in every sector on each consecutive lap that he has done, and therefore got a better time every lap that he has turned. So I think it's definitely in him. He only needs a tenth to dip under that 1 minute 10 second barrier and into the 109s.
Looking at Heath Dixon, he's looking at a personal best on this particular lap. He is currently 9th and improves to 6th.
He goes up to 6th.
Yeah, he's taken about 8 tenths out of his best, and so that's a 110.898 for him.
A couple of guys yet to post a representative time. A couple of them have turned some laps. So Voda in the Voda entry there. Gary Neville, Hobbo and Dwayne Davies. Dwayne Davies and Hobbo yet to actually complete any laps on the circuit, so they may be just biding their time. Voda's just coming back out onto the circuit now for another crack at things, but he's already used up 3 of his 15 lap allocations, so he may have made a few mistakes on those laps that he's done, but they've still got plenty of time. Still got just over 22 minutes to post a time.
Now that came up last week. A few of these guys didn't realise that the 15 lap allocation was a limit, and that if you go over that, then your times get deleted. So hopefully we'll watch out for that. No one's anywhere near that yet. Looking at Will Devonish, he's had a wild ride on his 5th lap. So I don't think he'll be improving on this particular occasion. Oh, as Brian Walsh comes out in front of him, and it looks like he might have blocked Heath Dixon as well, but he does improve on his PB by a tenth and a bit there, so Will Devonish in 9th.
Yeah, fair to say the Bob Jane T-Mart's car was off the line, but the closing speed was absolutely phenomenal when you've got a car on a flying lap versus a car that's just on a warm-up. As I say that Bob Jane T-Mart's car just running a little bit wide on the runoff area at turn 1, as Will Devonish looks like he's going for another fast one here.
Just looking at Hobbo now, he's been a bit quiet. He was very quick at Symmons Plains, but he's 5 tenths off on this particular lap.
Yeah, 26.
Only his second lap, so I think it's only his first flyer.
His first flying lap, he had a 26.6 on his opening sector and a 15.7 on the middle sector, but I think that this one might be put him somewhere in the pack, hopefully toward the top end.
Yep. Certainly a banker.
It puts him up to 4th, so with a 110.6, so not a bad
won't stay
starting
4th
time.
Though. He will certainly have a lot more time in him than that, because judging by the times we saw in practice, that being 6 tenths off pole time is not going to be enough to keep you in 4th. No. And we know Hobbo's got more pace than that. But hopefully he
Johnny
doesn't get... He's got coming up behind Pablo here, who duly gets out of the way, so... and he is up on his PB. Still 2/10 down on pole, but he's improving nonetheless, Hobbo. Boke and Johnny very close to Hobbo's time, so it's basically Greg Turra and then Daylight after him. Hobbo's still... Oh, he's carrying a little bit too much speed, I think, just getting out onto those curbs. And just not quite as clean as we saw from Greg Turra. And Hobbo's had a lot of traffic on this lap, so he'll probably still improve. He's gone onto the grass there a bit, but certainly not the fastest. As I say that, he's pulled it out to get second there, so he is only a tenth and a bit behind Greg Turra, so this is promising to be actually quite a good battle. If Hobbo gets a clean lap in, we certainly look forward to that, but he hasn't managed to. He's found traffic on this lap, and I think he might go to the pits after that. I can't hear my co-commentator, Nether, if you're there. I'm not sure what's going on. Greg Turra is still in the pit lane there, having set his 1:10. He's just sort of looking at the others to see what they do. So let's have a look at Hobbo as he comes out. See whether he can do anything about Turra's times. But while we do that, I'm just going to take a quick break to see why I can't hear Nether. Alright. Nether will be back shortly. Looks like he's just having a couple of technical issues. But for now, let's have a look at Hobbo. Well, he's 1/10 down on Greg Turra. He's on his outlap. A lot of traffic he's finding, and he's really hanging it out, actually. If he does manage a clean lap, we know that he has the pace as well. He's just trying to find some space on track, which is exceedingly difficult when the lap is so short, just 1:10, and there's a car coming up behind, a teammate. Hopefully they'll be in communication with each other, so they won't have too many issues with holding each other up. He is getting the blue flags, but he is on a hot lap as of this moment. So let's go on board and just see what he can do. And still, he's up on his PB here, Hobbo, but he just doesn't quite have the pace through that first sector. And he's wide there. He certainly was quicker than Greg Turra in the final sector, but that's where he picked up his time on his one lap that he has done. But whether or not this will be better than his PB, we wait to see. Yeah, he's lost 2/10 there, so not quite the lap that he was after. I'm just going to restart Discord because it might be issues on my side. Hello?
Have you got me there, Stairs?
Yes, got you there. Sorry about that.
Alrighty.
Some technical issues must have been on my side. We had that happen last week.
Well, we all have a little bit of
hello.
malfunctions in the commentary box every now and again.
Hobbo is up on this particular occasion. He's 2/10 up on the pole time.
Greg Turrer, I've just noticed, has dipped into the 109s on that lap. His first two sectors weren't entirely promising, but he's done a 27.9 in the last sector and gone to the further in front with a 109.9.
But Hobbo is looking to improve that. He's absolutely hung it out to dry on this lap. So let's see if, as he crosses the line, whether he's going to be able to better
That is
Greg.
a
And he's done it.
105.
0.384 of a second.
Yeah,
that
really
is a
full
significant lap. So we knew that he just needed to scrape it together because he found 2/10 on one of his bad laps when he had traffic. And,
this is going to be on like Donkey Kong, I think, this race. There's two guys out in front that look like they're streets ahead of anybody else, and I think this is a mouth-watering prospect being set up here between Hobbo and Greg Turrer.
So do you reckon they were sandbagging during during the practice session? Because these guys were just sort of anonymous. They were down maybe 8th, 9th, 10th, perhaps doing race practice or something like that. They just didn't. They haven't really shown their hand until it's actually counted.
No, but as we've seen over some of the various series that guys that run AMS, the practice session is exactly what it is, a practice session. Some guys try different strategy things, and most guys don't tend to show their hand with qualifying pace. They'll tend to do long distance runs and make sure they're comfortable with it, and then they'll all let it hang out when it comes to qualifying.
And Greg Turner's got an awful lot of traffic in the first sector on this particular occasion, and I don't know if Kingshot jumping out the way there has helped him that much, because he's just sort of muffed up the chicanes somewhat. And if I was Greg Turner, well, actually, the thing is, your outlaps count as your allocated 15. So if he's got the fuel to keep going, he probably will, rather than wasting another lap. So I guess he'll just treat this as another outlap.
And if I was Greg Turner, I'd probably throw this lap away. That first sector time was 6/10 greater than what his best lap is, and even his second sector is somewhat half a second off what his best lap is. I think this lap is going to be
I think he backed off after he hit the traffic at the start of the lap. But hopefully he's given himself another gap, and a big enough gap to have another assault on Hobbo's time, which looks pretty difficult, it must be said, at this stage to overhaul, but nonetheless he's going to try, isn't he?
Absolutely. And on that point of the number of laps, we have got a couple of drivers that are flying fairly close to the limit of their lap allocation. We've got Pablo's just ticked over. He's only got one lap remaining. I dare say he's probably not going to run again. We've got Matt Williams,
unless he's on track.
He actually won't be, will he? No, because he's he's actually in the pits at the minute, so I think he's done for this session. Got Matt Williams, who's used up 13, and a couple have used up 12 as well. So they're right on the limit. They've really only got one more flying lap left in them, and then it's curtains for them for the rest of the session.
Tara's hung it out on the exit onto the back straight there, because he is about half a tenth up on his best and only half a tenth down on pole. Or having said that, he's just stuffed it into the wall. And he was 2/10 down on that sector split anyway, but he was absolutely on the limit of braking, went wide, and then round she went. So that lap is a throwaway as Hobbo takes to the track.
Yeah, his first sector time was comparable to Hobbo's, so he was looking good, but just lost it down through that little back chicane section on the way to the Dandenong Road end of the course.
But Hobbo is absolutely mega in that second and third sector. That's where he's made up all his time on previous laps. So it's a mountain to climb for Greg Tara if he comes anywhere near Hobbo's time in the first sector. He's still got a lot of work to do to overhaul that 109.6.
I want to take a look down through the field. We've actually got quite a decent battle for some of the second, third and fourth rows of the grid forming. We've got Johnny, who's sitting in third place with a 10.5, and then underneath him we've got another 10.5 from Schultz from Interlagos Motorsport. Got a gaggle of guys that have set 10.6s as well.
Heath Dixon's not too far away either.
No, so there's not a lot of room to separate a few guys from jumping up or down a couple of rows on the grid, a tenth or two here and there, and those guys will move up and down.
Matt Williams seems to be done. He's done 14 of his 15 laps, so he's only up as far as 7th, so that's only going to get... And it's so close as well. He's within a 1/10 faster, and he'd be up 3 positions.
And we're going to have to be careful here too. I'm just watching out of the corner of my eye, Johnny. He's in third place now. He's done 14 out of the 15 laps. So if he completes this lap, that's the end of his allocation. and he'll have to exit straight back to the pits.
Hopefully he knows that.
I'm hoping he does still, because he's... We've got David Kingshot has actually used up his entire allocation of 15. Pablo's used up 14. So too's Brian Walsh. Johnny's coming into the pits here.
Given up on that lap. It probably wasn't fast enough. He would have seen that on his sector split.
Yep, and he's this is curtains for him.
So he's second actually.
We've actually just lost Greg Tara temporarily, so
hopefully he gets back
that's
in.
Why Johnny's moved up to second. So when Tara comes back in, that
I was going to say I didn't think he'd improved that much. He's a second down on Hobbo. Interesting. So let's go through. Well, Schultz has got another 3 laps if he needs them. Heath Dixon's got another 3 laps. Boke's
got quite a stack of laps actually. So he's probably set. Let's have a look at his times. He's two times. Sorry,
Johnny's just. Is he doing? Is he practicing? Oh no, there he goes. He's got back into his garage. He was just sitting behind the safety car there. Not sure what was going on there, but sorry to cut across you there. Brock Harvey's got 3 laps left. Devonish is on his 13th lap.
Glenn Brockhurst right down there in 17th has still got quite a stack of laps there as well. We've got Dwayne Davies has only used 6 of his 15. Aaron Thomas has only used 7 of his 15. So there's a handful of guys there that probably got some, I guess, a license to throw it around a little bit more up their sleeve. And if they don't end up improving their time, well, it's nothing ventured, nothing gained. They've got plenty of time up their sleeve still. I've actually got, in terms of time, they've only got just under 9 minutes remaining with all those guys that are there. And most of them look like they're going to sit the remaining session out because they've got no more laps left in them.
It's a bit of a lull on the track, really. I think, is it Devonish the only one on the track at this stage?
We've got Hobbo's actually out on track at the moment. He's just coming up to the final chicane at the end of the course by the look of it, just coming through the pits.
And we're looking at Will Devonish, who's 2 tenths up on his PB. So let's see, where would that put him if he goes up? He's sort of right on the bubble there with Harvey and Williams up ahead of him. If he can find another 10th in this sector, then it'll jump him 2 positions.
He needs to find about 3 tenths to get into the gaggle of guys that are on the 10.6s and the 10.5s. What's he got in him here?
Oh, he's lost it.
He doesn't improve.
No, he's somehow lost half a second in that final sector. I wasn't watching the screen for the whole lot. It did look a bit messy through the chicane, or through the S's.
And he's now used 14 of his 15 lap allocation, so I dare say he's not going to have another shot in him with this one.
Oh, not with that. No, that's certainly not going to be a lap that is worth keeping.
That's definitely not a proud moment.
No, well, let's look at someone else. Let's see where Hobbo is. There he is.
Hobbo's down at the Dandenong Road, 90-degree left-hander coming under the Gene Beam Bridge right now on the way to the final chicane.
To be his last run, I expect. This is an outlap by the looks of it, given, by the way, he's not pushing. So that means he's got 1 flying lap.
26.3 for his first sector, but now he's in the pits. So that's him done and dusted, I dare say.
Yep. Yeah, because there's no way he'd be able to get around and set another lap without exhausting his allocation of laps. So,
well, Greg Tara hasn't given up on this yet. He's taken back to the track. He's still got a handful of laps up his sleeve.
He's not going to get it on this lap.
No, he's just on an out lap right now. I think. He's on an out lap.
No, yeah, sorry. I was looking at his lap time as the split time, which it isn't. So yes, you're correct. This is his out lap. So he's behind Aaron Thomas on track. Presumably, he will give himself some space. He's got all the time in the world, really, to another 4 laps potentially, another 3 laps after this one, to overhaul Hobbo.
Who else have we got out on the circuit at the moment there? We've got Heath
Thomas
Dixon
just going off.
We've got Heath Dixon coming up to the final chicane, so he's got another 3 or so laps left in him. As he comes, he's on his way to start a flying lap, Heath Dixon.
And he's in that gaggle of cars, sort of 3rd down through to 7th, 8th. You know, they're only separated by 2 tenths of a second. It's incredible. That battle is going to be immense during the race.
Well, I'm going to keep an eye on Heath Dixon. I'll see what he's got left in him, because you're right, Stairs. If there's a 10th or 2 either way, it's going to move that entire 2nd, 3rd, possibly even 4th rows around, depending on who gets the time.
Greg Tara's pushing it on this first sector. We are about to cross the split to see what he's got, and it needs to be up, really, and it's not. So he's he's a tenth and a half down on Hobbo, so he's got a mammoth effort on his hands if he wants to get pole.
Heath Dixon some 1 second off the leading pace, and he's about 4/10 off his PB. So at this stage, he doesn't look like he's going to improve on this lap, but he's still got a couple more left.
Yeah, may have had an error. 4/10 sounds like he's probably come across traffic or maybe hit curb too hard. It's easy to do, as we've seen a lot of people lose it on the curbs, because you really have to attack them around here, don't you?
You do. He lost those 4/10 in the first sector, so I dare say it was just maybe a curb here or a missed line there. That lap time was an 11.2, so some 6/10 off his best, and he's going around again.
Greg Tara's done another 1:10.0 and a half a tenth, so he's consistent. It's very close to what his best lap for this session is, and so it's looking like a two-horse race at this stage, because it doesn't appear as though Johnny and the chasing, or Greg Tara's not going to improve on this lap. He's just lost it out of this straight. Looks like it's going to be a two-horse race between Tara and Hobbo, because half a second is quite a lot on this track for the rest of them to make up during the race. Sorry
to cut across you the stairs. We're just looking down into the pit lane here. We've actually got Grant English and Aaron Thomas have just popped up on our list. Now, they haven't set any times yet. English for Vorteal Rennsport, Aaron Thomas in the Adam Racing car. I'm not sure if they're going to... Actually, Grant English is on track at the moment.
Yeah, he's just past the finish line.
Going for his first flying lap. And Thomas is still in the pits, so we might have a couple more guys that can... Can they jump up into this gaggle of guys on the second, third and fourth rows and upset the apple cart a little bit?
Well, we won't know until they do. And time is quickly running out. There's 3 minutes and 36 seconds.
Just over 3.5 minutes, yeah.
Grand English at the moment, 1.1 second. Oh, he's backed off. He's backed off on this lap, so...
He's set at 27.3 in that first sector, so probably not a time that he needs to be at. And he's actually gone back to the pits, Grand English. So maybe a miss there.
Might have forgotten to take the fuel out or something. But well, let's see. Is there anyone else?
There's nobody on track at the moment. The track is dead. There's no one actually out there at all.
Well, who's actually got laps left? Aaron Thomas has pretty much his full allocation remaining.
Grant English there with
done
most of his allocation.
Johnny's done his 15. Schultz is... Oh, here we go. Thomas is taking it to the track, so he's really only going to get 1 or 2 laps in at this stage. And everyone is just looking at Thomas because he's really the only one doing anything at the moment.
He's going to have the whole entire track to himself. This is almost going to be one of them lonely drives where you have got nobody in front of you and nobody behind you, and
beautiful feeling, Nether. When you've got a track to yourself like this, it's I mean, if you just ignore the 17 sets of eyes that are trained upon your every movement, but you know, wouldn't you just love to have Sandown to yourself for a few minutes?
Oh, I'm sure I'd love to have Sandown to myself for a few minutes, but not with 18 other pairs of eyes scrutinising my every apex and my every exit and every corner entry, Stairs.
Yes, you've just got to put that out of mind, really, don't you? It's just one of those things that, you know, whether someone's watching you or not, the clock doesn't lie. So you just got to do what you always do and try and put that to one side.
We've got Grant English has now exited the pits as well, so he's probably going to get one flying crack at this at a time here. So he's down at the bottom end of the back straight, just coming on out of turn 4 now. And Aaron Thomas is up at the final chicane, so he's about to... He actually might get 2 laps at this. He will get 2 laps if he keeps them on time.
If he's got the fuel on board, he certainly will.
So let's have a look at his lap as he goes through here.
Might just go on board and see... Well, that's a difficult angle. There we go, that's a bit better. You can see his steering inputs.
There's a little bit of a lock up into turn 1 there. He uses the exit curve nicely. Let's have a look at the chicane here.
Nice and clean through there. Well, a little bit of exit curve on the inside there. Not using all of the track.
Just keeping it on the black top at the minute. 27.0 for a first sector time.
Oh, that's not what you... That's going to kill his speed.
He's caught a little bit of that inside curb. You want to stay away from that, otherwise you just hurt your top speed all the way down this back straight, and that's what you need to get up over the rise.
There's going to be an invoice to pay on that one. He had to get out of the throttle, but...
well, 15.7 for a middle sector is actually not too shabby compared
only
to
lost
some of the
2
guys that have
tenths,
done.
surprisingly.
A little bit taily at the exit of Dandenong Road, but as he
That's a
comes
Porsche
down,
for you.
It is.
So through the final chicane and onto the last corner, and it's probably not going to be top 10
for another lap.
Yes, he's got 10 seconds remaining.
13th.
So 13th, so he's got more pace in him. Let's see, who else do we have on track?
Grant English. Grant English is coming down to the Dandenong Road corner now.
He'll be a bit further ahead, I think.
He's got 2 tenths on Aaron Thomas's time at the moment. He had a better first sector, on par middle sector.
Oh, he's taking a lot of curb there.
Choosing that curb rather aggressively on that last chicane and on the exit.
Wonder if that's a track cut, but we haven't actually driven this track myself, so I don't know.
Well, it's not. He paid the price for it. He ended up 14th, so he can't improve. The only man that can improve his time is the man who's on circuit still, and that's Aaron Thomas. And yeah, he's dropped a 10th in that first sector. And his middle sector's... his middle sector was actually quicker, so he's on par with his previous lap time.
Yeah, so he's lost it. Is he backed out of it? No, he
hasn't backed out of it, but it's a little bit untidy coming through that back section on the way to Dandenong Road. Oh, a lot of smoke from the brakes there.
Yeah, Thomas will be disappointed. There was more time there. You could see how much he lost on that first lap.
He actually improves his lap time to 12th. He found 2 tenths that last sector, so that gives him an 11.1. And just to show you how much, he's improved by 77 hundredths, and he's found himself 1 place. That's the kind of margins we're talking about here with how tight this field is. Stairs.
Yeah, only 300ths of a second ahead of Dwayne Davies there in 13th, so that's incredibly close. If he'd found another half a tenth or so, he would have jumped Baker. And the cars up in 10th and 9th are only 2 tenths, so he had that in him. If he had a few more laps to set a time, he may well have found himself in the top 10.
So it actually looks like a lot of the earlier lap times that people put down were the times that they couldn't better in the end, apart from a few guys closer to the top, such as Hobbo and Greg Tara. But it's Hobbo who ends up with the pole, and he'll be starting from the front alongside Greg Tara in second for this race.
That's right. A few issues in the pit lane garages with cars spawning in the same spot from different teams, and it looks
like we're not having a warm-up session here. We're going to go straight to race according to what's on the screen as they're all lining up here on the grid.
Yep, they don't muck around. So let's head to the grid now, and hopefully all the other guys have realised that we're about to start racing.
I think I've got just over 10 seconds to grid up here, so have we got everybody out of the pits? I think we have.
It looks like there's someone missing. Yeah, there's the black and green car, which eludes me right now. I can't remember who that is. But as we've got the lights...
to go green. The lights are going. You know what happens next? It's
racing.
Go!
Alright, good start from Greg Tara on the outside, but Hobbo's got the inside as they approach turn 1, and it looks like he's going to get the whole shot, and they lead away from a huge gaggle of cars behind them as they all get through turn 1. As there's a bit of contact, someone spun round.
It's Grant English. Grant English has I'm not sure if he's been turned around or gone around by himself, but he's dropped right to the back of the pack, and it's still on through the middle of the second, third, and fourth turns here. Are they all going to get through cleanly to the back straight?
2 and 3 wide. Johnny with the Bob Jane T-Mart's car with his headlights on as we go through the grid. We've got a bit of a single file now, thankfully, and Hobbo with a bit of a gap. Greg Tara with Schultz ahead. There's a bit of a lock-up, but does he make the corner? Yes, he does. And someone's just gone off. That's looks like that's Pete Voke has recovered it, gathered it up in the chicane there.
Yes, and they're all strung out nicely here. So there's a little bit of
something's happened.
Argy back at Dandenong Road, and we've got Grant English off again. We've got Glenn Brockhurst is off as well, so they're recovering. It's showing Baker down in 19th place, but he's actually a bit further up the grid than what that shows. It's actually showing him a lap down. I don't think that's entirely accurate.
That's a
Hopefully
bit
that'll
bizarre.
that will sort itself out. But yeah, Grant English is now in the pits. Grant English in the pits.
Oh, so he's got damage obviously from that first lap, first corner spin. Whether he copped a knock from someone, we unfortunately can't show replays here, so that's unfortunate.
English is in, and he's undertaking a pit stop right now.
And they all try and sort themselves out as we head onto the straight on lap 2. We've got cars side by side, Will Devonish and Johnny fighting over 11th and 12th place there.
And someone's going to have to yield here because you can't take this next left-hander side by side. Who's going to yield? Oh, it's Devonish that takes the position, but that was very, very closely run and very nearly could have ended up putting someone into a wall.
Demon under brakes there because it's a very tight line to take into the corner as we saw Williams going off up ahead, so he's going to find himself under pressure from Will Devonish, who takes a lot of curb on the inside there and obviously seems to work for him.
That it does. We're having a look down the field just to see if there's any battles that are taking place. Voda is defending here from Baker. And Baker's got a run on him down the main straight, so he'll look to the inside at turn 1. Can he get him under brakes?
No, I don't. I think he'll back out from that one. It's
yeah, it looks like he's just given up the ghost now. So
Voda braked amazingly early, actually. Baker probably could have quite easily taken that. Almost looked like he was letting Baker through, and then they both slowed each other up. They're going incredibly slowly through this section, and it's allowed Dwayne Davies onto the back of this battle.
Yes, in that wonderful Pirelli Marlboro-coloured car back there. He's just going to bide his time, I think, and see if Baker and Voda decide to come to blows or and take a little opportunity should it arise.
Oh, Will Devonish is having an absolutely well, he's locking up and absolutely on the ragged edge of grip here. So he's let Matt Williams get away, and Johnny is in his mirrors again. So these two look set to have a battle that may well rage on for the rest of this race.
Well, it's all quietened down for a little bit now as people just get a feel for the car, just get a feel for what their rivals around them are doing, and assess what their strategy is going to be through the remainder of this race. We're on to the third lap now, or completed 3 laps according to the timing screens. We've got someone just diving into the pits there as well. That's very early in the race. Who's that with? It's Baker. Baker's gone into the pits.
Oh no. Maybe he had damage and that was why he was going so slowly before. And he's
retired.
Actually
retired. Oh, he's actually retired. Now, I'm wondering if that's got something to do with the 3 laps down that the system was reporting him as. Maybe there's a transponder issue or something going on there, but he was constantly being told he was down by laps, even though he was well up on the field.
That's unfortunate. He's one of the representatives here from ARW, which yours truly and my co-commentator Nether and Goofball Antics and Pablo are all from. So never good to see one of your own out of the race.
Goofball Antics' alternate name is Heath Dixon in this race. He's currently up in 6th position, following Sando 75, and he's ahead of Brock Harvey. So still strung out, but there's still plenty of time for anybody to make a move.
Well, Brock Harvey's got himself under immense pressure from Aaron Thomas as they are exiting the final corners there side by side, and Aaron Thomas
is going to have overlap here and down into turn 1, and I don't think he'll be backing out of this.
No, and these two obviously know each other reasonably well, and Aaron Thomas, I think, is going to know that Brock Harvey is. We've got someone off. There's one of the 33 cars there.
That is the
and Sando 75 has lost it. I hope
so
Heath Dixon wasn't the cause of that.
To be careful with this rejoin here, but he's done it safely and maintains.
Schultz, I think.
Comes back into 11th place ahead of David Kingshot.
Sorry, it wasn't Schultz. It was Sando 75 and David Kingshot. So Kingshot, the man who was the cause of an enormous crash last time out in Simmons Plains, which took Brock Harvey out of the race. Brock Harvey will be quite happy that he's a bit further up the road in this particular race, but there's absolutely no time to relax because this is this gaggle of cars that was all within half a tenth or so of each other in qualifying.
And if you have a look at the laps that Hobbo's turning at the minute, his best lap is a 1 minute 10.1, and he's consistently lapping in the 10s at the moment. All 3 of his lap times have been a 10.6 or better.
Wow.
So he's getting quite a gap on Greg Tara. He's out to nearly 2.5 seconds.
And Greg Tara himself has got a fair bit of space between himself and the third place man. Philip Boak in Philip Boak in the 24 car. So it's basically this sort of gaggle here, which is the closest battle on track with Aaron Thomas for 4th place.
There's actually another battle shaping up. I'm just looking down the field here. There's Schultz and Devonish are at it again as they head up to the chicane section on the way to the Dandenong Road end of the course. He's too far back to make an attempt at him this time, Schultz. But
Devonish has gone wide. Yeah, Devonish has gone wide through there and has handed the place to Schultz. No, that wasn't Schultz. Oh, straight in front of...
And has he been collected there by...
Oh, he's gonna... That's a very unsafe rejoin. Poor old bloody Sandown 75's had to take almost to the grass to make it around him. And the two Magenta 33 cars are now back in 10th and 11th. So that's not gone well. He completely outbraked himself. Thought he spied an opportunity to make a position. And I thought... that seemed a bit optimistic in that part of the track to make the position, and indeed it turned out to be.
And a horrible few corners there for Schultz at the end of the second half of that lap. He definitely spied an opportunity, thought he could make it. I actually thought he was going to go straight into the gravel trap, and that's where he would stay for a little while with all the remaining traffic coming through, but managed to get himself out of it, but almost caused a little bit of a calamity down at that end of the circuit.
I think we've lost Heath Dixon's down in 18th place, so there's some...
Yeah, Heath Dixon's just down at the Dandenong Road of the course. He's actually missing the rear
wing. He's lost his wing. Oh, that's terrible.
So something's happened to him there. He was up inside the top 8,
and that's him out of the race.
He's now retired from the race with a suspension issue, so that looks like the result of some sort of contact or maybe a mistake. We might get a lowdown from him a little bit later on and see what happened there.
Yeah, hopefully he may well be able to join us in the commentary box afterwards and just give us the rundown of what happened, but that's unfortunate because with everyone else falling off the track, it was looking like he was shaping up for a good result.
We've actually got Hobbo on track at the chicane at the moment. He's coming up to put Grant English a lap down, who unfortunately was the victim of that turn 1 incident, got turned around and then had another incident at the other end of the circuit and had to stop. So he's in a race all on his own, over half a minute behind 16th place car, but looks like he's about to go a lap down to Hobbo here.
So that's rough luck for Grant English, and Hobbo hopefully well, he'll be hoping for a clean lapping in this particular instance because it's really the only thing that can prevent him from winning, although I said that last week and he managed to find a way to crash all by himself, so Greg Turr will be hoping for something like that.
Absolutely.
Grant English just going wide at the final corner.
Brian Walsh is actually in the pits at the moment. Just looks like a routine stop. He's actually, Grant English has gone past as a result of that. Hobbo hasn't lapped him yet, but I dare say he's about to do so in the next... down here at turn 1, actually. Yep. He's going to get the job done.
He is. There really shouldn't be too many routine stops in this race because they are flag-to-flag races without stops. So unless they feel like there's some sort of advantage in running light, that they can make up during the race, then you shouldn't see too many of them in the pits for anything other than damage.
Absolutely. It doesn't look like there's any damage to that car, but it may have already been fixed, and just waiting to see if he comes back out onto the circuit. It's an awfully long time he's sitting there stationary for. Yeah,
which means that it's probably unscheduled because you really wouldn't want to stop unless it's a very quick splash and dash or a new set of tyres. As we've got Grant English is hanging on to Hobbo, maybe learning a thing or two, but he'll have to jump out of the way for Greg Turr in a second.
Well. Trying to get a little bit of a tow and just keep himself in touch with the leader and see if he can maybe sneak an extra position or two should anything happen to the guys ahead. Brock, if they fall off the road or that.
Sorry to cut across you there. Brock Harvey was on the back of Aaron Thomas a moment ago, but he's fallen back now and has got his work cut out to hang on to 5th place because he's got Williams and Devonish right behind him, and those two look like they're hungry.
They do look very, very hungry indeed. That's one of there's some of the guys that were in that mid-pack during the qualifying session in the 10, 5, 6s across those 2nd, 3rd and 4th and 5th rows that were very, very tight, and the on-track racing is reflecting that. These guys are very close.
Absolutely, and it's all helping out Aaron Thomas, who he's just gradually reeling in Philip Boak there. He's currently leading this championship. Sorry,
got a slow car actually. Just it's the Bob Jane teammates car of Johnny. He just dropped 2 places to Sando 75 and Schultz just on the opening few corners of that lap. I'm not sure if he went wide or not, but he was very slow between turns 1 and 2.
Might have gone deep.
Yeah, his first sector time is a 30.2, so that's some 3 seconds slower than anybody else. I dare say he's probably fallen off the road, and he's surrendered 2 places very, very quickly.
Well, this is an old-fashioned track, Nether. It punishes mistakes, so if you go wide at that corner, you've got a bit of gravel to make your way through before you can get back up to speed.
Just having a look at the back straight, Dwayne Davies has got a run on Pablo here, but he's backed out of it on the way down to this left complex on the way to the Dandenong Road end of the circuit.
Well, that's not the end of it, though. Pablo's
That's definitely not the end of it. That battle's going to rage on for the remaining half of this race. We're only halfway through, and as Murray Walker used to say, with half the race gone, there is still half the race to go.
That's very much what Murray Walker said, and if the only trait that I can get from him is making a lot of mistakes, then, well, that seems to be the only one I've picked up from him so far. But nonetheless, Pablo has got a little bit of breathing space to breathe down, with Dwayne Davies just a few car lengths back, so just got to look at that, as a moment, we have a moment from Dwayne Davies there, as that battle just sort of settles down, ready for round 2.
Just looking down through the field, there isn't very many close battles, and it looks like the tow that probably a few drivers were expecting up the back straight, they might have given them a half a shot at overtaking their rivals, isn't as powerful as what they were probably first thinking, Stairs.
No, well, that's true. I mean, these cars rely a little bit on downforce, but Dwayne Davies has made a meal of that corner there. And Pablo's just taking it a bit carefully, so he hasn't actually lost that much time to him. Pablo obviously just nice and steady, looking for a result.
Lap times are fairly consistent there, Pablo. So probably just looking to keep his nose clean. He wasn't here for the first round of the series. Joining.
Yes, you're right. He wasn't.
Was he? Yeah.
He joined for the V8s, I think. This is his first Porsche race. So you're right, you are. This attrition rate that seems to be quite high in this race is helping him out so that he can get a few points.
There's a couple of guys that have actually gone a lap down as well as Grand English. David Kingshot's gone reporting as 2 laps down. Brian Walsh also reporting as 2 laps down. He's just exiting the pits actually. So
more damage.
More damage, having been in for a second time.
Just Sando very, very wide coming into the
Matt Williams retired. Matt Williams has retired.
Oh, and he's retired from 9th place, so there's a few positions for Pablo and Dwayne behind him to pick up. Or 1 position, because he only occupies 1 position as 1 car, Matt Williams, but that's one of the well-known guys from the Short Shift podcast team, so that's very unfortunate for them.
Yeah, it's very, very sad to see that a couple of guys have retired. That should have been a little bit at the pointy end of the field, but the close confines of this circuit and the equally matched cars, it's proving to be a little bit of a war of attrition for some guys. Hopefully we won't see too many more retirements.
Grand English just... Oh, no, that's Greg Tara in 2nd place. He's just trying to avoid... and he's gone into the wall.
He's lost his rear wing as well.
No.
Can he make it back to the pits and get that repaired? But it's going to be a mighty job to get that back. He's got to wait for some of these cars to come through before he can rejoin. He's dropped all the way down to 6th. He's got a clear track now, so he can get up.
He's pulling over, I think.
I think he's just staying off the circuit. He's come to a stop. He's come to a stop just after, I think is at the end of Dandenong Road, that's turn 7. So he's retired as well. So that's a shame. He was doing as well as he possibly could. I mean, there was still a bit of daylight between him and Hobbo, but he had well and truly, I guess, settled for 2nd place and just came across somebody at the wrong moment. And
I was watching that as it happened. He was coming up to lap Grand English. It looked like Grand English was going to
we've got another one that's off the circuit here between turns 1 and 2. That's Brock. Is that Brock? No, it's not Brock Harvey. It's Philip Boak. He took a wild ride through the grass between turns 1 and 2.
And he's dropped a few places there, hasn't he? He's down to 5th place.
He was in 3rd, and he's now dropped down to 5th. So that puts Brock Harvey onto the podium into third, and Will Devonish is still hunting him down. He's just dropped away a little bit, but yeah, that was definitely one wild ride for Philip Boak.
Yeah, sorry, what I was saying before, we're just coming through this section here when it was English was being lapped by forgetting the names, Greg Turra, and it was just when he locked up, went wide, English that is, and looked like he was coming back onto the track, so it was avoiding action that Turra was trying to make, and in doing that with these Porsches, if you start looping it round, the engine just keeps going, and the momentum of the car just pendulums you around, and that's what happened, and unfortunately there was a wall that he met with, and that was the end of his race.
Yeah, these cars are very difficult to recover from some spins. I mean, it takes an awful amount of skill to stop them from going around. But as you said, Stairs, once they start going, they just tend to keep going.
So, very disappointing from a spectator point of view. Very relieving for Hobbo. I don't know how much pressure he was under, but I mean, you still got to spot every apex. And
sorry to cut you off there, Stairs. We've actually got Sando 75's gone off at the Dandenong Road end of the course, and he's also retired as well. I didn't quite see what had happened, but he was in the gravel trap. But this level of attrition is starting to take its toll on this race. We've lost 4 guys in the last couple of laps.
And guys
well
from
early in the piece.
Fairly high up positions as well. So if people could stop retiring and forcing you to interrupt me, that'd be fantastic. But that means that Pablo, who we were talking about not 5 minutes ago, who was in 11th or 12th place at that stage, has now found his way up into 19th.
And sorry to cut you off again there, Stairs. We've actually got the race leader in the pits. So he's dropping down the order rapidly as he's in the pits. And I'm not sure what he's doing in the pits there, but as you said, it could be flag to flag related. Spot? I'm not sure if this is scheduled or not. It doesn't look like he had any damage as he was driving in, but I could be wrong. We only get a certain angle that from the TV cameras taking a look at these cars as they come past. So let's see if he returns to the circuit. His lap time at 1:23 on the last lap, but I'm not sure if that's due to a bad sector or if that's due to the end, but he's coming back out again.
And he's going to be in 8th place, probably drop another position beyond that. So I wonder if he's handicapped himself by forcing himself to make a stop that others don't, or whether or not we're going to have a flurry of pit stops.
Oh, just look at Brock Harvey. Brock Harvey's gone through the grass at the chicane on the way down to Dandenong Road. I'm not sure if that was
held onto it
behind, but he's held onto it
somehow.
I'm not sure if he got a little touch from
Boak's retiring. Boak's pulling off. He's got smoke coming out of the rear of that car. Shame. Is that related to the incident that we've just been talking about? I don't know.
I'm not sure either, Stairs, but that's mightily disappointing. But he's gone as well. And, yeah, Brock Harvey taking a tour through the grass. I'm not sure if he missed a corner or if something happened, if he got a touch from behind, but another wild ride and very nearly in the fence.
Well, I'm wondering if that was if Hobbo made a mistake and had to fix damage, because we didn't see pit stops from certain runners last week, and Aaron Thomas all of a sudden finds himself in the lead of this race, having won last round in the second race and in the lead of the championship. So this is all sort of turning up, it's all coming up for Aaron Thomas right at this stage.
It absolutely is coming up, Aaron Thomas. His Christmas has all have come at once, and that's a fair comment because we're only in March and Christmas is still some 9 months away. But,
well, let's hold off on the opportunity. He will, but he is coming up on Grand English, and not to suggest that Grand English has any malicious intent or anything like that. Just lost it at the wrong moment for Turra.
This battle for second is not over, Stairs. This battle for second is not over. Will Devonish just had a little crack up the inside of Brock Harvey, and going into the chicane at the end of that lap, that battle is going to go to the flag.
I wonder if they tripped over each other getting past the lap runner of Brian Walsh there, because that was he was very close as they were going side by side through that final corner.
I caught a glimpse of that pass. He was actually off the racing line and let them through cleanly.
Very good.
I think it was just that Devonish just had a little bit of a run out of the exit out of turn 7 on the way to the chicane.
Harvey might be just nursing some damage or something, because he just looks a little bit tentative through some of these corners, doesn't he?
Yeah. He does look a little bit tentative, and his lap times, the last 2 lap times have been a little bit off the pace. Devonish has got a run on him here.
There's overlap, I think.
All right, how's this going to pan out on the way down to turn 5?
It was too late. Harvey's trying. Oh, Harvey tried to move across to defend it. He's lost his wheel. He's out of the race, and so is the car, spinning through the S's there that was lapped and had nowhere to go. Oh, that's an absolute disaster.
Ryan Walsh as well. So Harvey and Walsh just almost spinning in synchronicity. And I've also just noticed Pablo's reported as he's out of this race as well. So this rate of attrition is starting to go up. Something shocking.
So we've got a few cars that are laps down that are going to overtake these cars that have DNF. We've got 2 DNFs that we've just caught up on. It's very difficult to keep up with what is actually happening in this race.
Third place man Schultz has just come into the pits as well. Doesn't look like he has any damage at the moment, but it could be deceiving. But it looks like it's a scheduled, it must have a scheduled stop, but it could be just to get a little splash. And it looks like it was a very quick, dash, actually.
Very, very quick stop. No tyres. I think he's just got fuel.
I reckon that's definitely a splash and dash. I think maybe he might have just short-filled a little bit there.
And that's with 2 laps to go. That's a little bit of a strategy mistake. If pit stops are not compulsory, which I'd be surprised if they are, but it means Hobbo gets position back, so he's up to 5th place.
Yeah, he's a man on a mission too. He's not that far behind Dwayne Davies, so he's still got a potential to get back up to 4th place. But after Dwayne Davies, it's about 10 seconds worth of daylight still to Johnny, who's very quietly moved up into the podium 3rd place.
Hobbo absolutely hanging it out, very close to the wall on the exit of onto the back straight there. So
Grant English in the pits as well, so I think this is his 3rd tour through the pits. He's been in at least twice already, but
less danger to the other cars on track then. Hobbo just hanging on to it there, very, very quick. So that's about 4th is probably the most he can hope for. Having said that, we've seen people drop out of the race all through this these 20 laps. And
there's actually race controls just popped up a penalty for Grant English for a drive-through. Now I'm not sure what that's in regards to, but
probably speeding in the pit lane, I imagine.
More than likely.
More than likely.
We're actually are we on the penultimate lap here, Stairs? I think we might be.
Oh, well, the leader's just started his final lap, I think.
Yeah, he's on his way down to Dandenong Road, so this could be the end of it, I believe.
Yes, but how far? Where on track is Aaron Thomas?
No, it is he's actually coming down to the final chicane now. He is actually on the last lap. This is the final lap.
Well, we've got Hobbos all over the back of Dwayne Davies with just one real opportunity to do it. He's got this corner. He's just got to get a nice exit, and then he's got a little bit of overlap. No, he hasn't. He's in that. Oh, he's almost bump drafting Dwayne Davies. He's going to go down the inside.
Now this is going to be interesting. Can he get alongside him enough to make Dwayne Davies relent when they get to this left-hander here at turn 5? No, he can't.
Aaron Thomas has won the race. We've sort of missed that because we're looking at this battle, but Hobbo's really got to get Dwayne Davies to make a mistake now. Oh, and he's punted him.
Gives him a little bump, but
he knows better than that. He's not going to not take advantage of that bump because.
He's a smart driver, Hobbo. He knew that if he had gained an advantage there, that it would have been curtains for that position. But he hasn't given up hope here.
Oh, a bit of a drag to the line. Is he going to get it? He's close. He's close. Not enough road.
Jeez, that was a closely run thing at the end of that.
He's missed out.
They were only separated at the flag by
half a tenth.
6/100ths of a second.
Yep. That's incredible. So, well... What can I say? Aaron Thomas is the master of keeping his nose clean, and that's his 2nd win out of 3 races so far in this Porsche series, and extends his lead in the championship.
The old adage applies, I think, in that situation with Aaron Thomas. Stairs to finish first you must finish, and he kept his nose clean, and he finished first while finishing the race.
Hobbo certainly had the pace, but I don't know whether that was an abysmal strategy call or whether it was an accident like last week, but nonetheless it's cost him dearly in this race.
Yeah, we didn't quite capture that on camera, but he did have a very, very poor last sector to a lap, so I dare say he may have gone off the circuit. It certainly wouldn't have been from coming into the pits, but we didn't see what it was, but ultimately it cost him what was almost certain victory.
That's right. Well, that is the conclusion of this race. So really only had half of the guys who started the race finishing. So we hope for something a little bit more,
Substantial.
Substantial, yes, that's the word I was looking for in the next race. So we'll just take a short break while we wait for them to... I don't know if they're going to do another qualifying session or whether they're going to just continue on, but we will wait and see. We shall see if we can get Heathy in the in the chat to see whether he can shed some light on what happened. Well, we're just loading up the cars for this practice session as we prepare for the second race. I've seen about 6 cars spawn in the same spot, which seems to be creating some issues, and a lot of unused garages down the other side of the pit lane.
We've got into another practice session here, and no takers to the track just yet, but I think this is just the precursor to what possibly will be another race. And
seeing, sorry to cut across here, we're seeing Brock Harvey's in this chat telling people it's a one-lap qualifying.
Well, let's see if this gets adhered to after what happened last week.
I have a feeling
these guys raced.
Yes, I think he might be looking for a one-shot where everyone goes out one after the other, but I have a feeling they're all going to take it to the track at the same time and just have one single lap to set their best time. So that'll be quicker, of course, than doing it one after the other, but we'll wait and see. He may well... I get the feeling he's probably explaining it to the men Discord at the moment.
Oh, here we go. The edict has been issued here. It's a one hot lap. So the guys can go out and do a hot lap at any time that they want to, but they only get one flying lap. If anybody does a second lap, they will be disqualified.
Right, well that's obviously to get things moving along, because another half-hour qualifying session would take far too long.
Absolutely.
And given this late stage of the night.
We've lost a few runners compared to the last session. I'm not sure if they're just not back in here or if they are done for the evening. But we're only down to 16 runners now. We had 19 at the last race. I believe we are missing... Well, Glenn Brockhurst has popped up here in the spectator mode with us, Stairs. So, although he's not in the commentary box, I dare say he's probably not diving in. I'm just scrolling through my list to see who else we are missing. I'm seeing Hubbo. I'm not seeing Greg Turra on the list either.
Might have gone to bed. Pablo, we've got first on track. Well, he's waiting at the end of the pit line. pit lane for the light to go green, but he'll be the first to take to the racing track. And it looks like it's just the 4 cars as the light goes green to start this session. And the car behind Pablo either asleep or giving Pablo an enormous gap because he's still waiting at the end of the pit lane. All the cars behind suggest, hello? We're going to start now?
Absolutely. I think what they're probably doing here is just giving themselves enough room because what's the instructions that have been issued is everybody can do 1 lap, but if you do more than 1 lap, you're going to have your time deleted. So I think they don't want to trip over each other. They just want to give themselves a bit more room this time around.
Fair enough.
It's not a free-for-all like the last qualifying session.
It's not just a banker lap. This is your lap. This is where you'll be starting race 2, so you can't stuff it up because you don't get any second chances.
Pablo on his way down to the northern end of the circuit at Dandenong Road here at Sandown. So through 5, 6, 7 and 8. Turn 8 is the left-hander here safely. He's on his way to turns 9, 10 chicane, and the final turn near the pits is turn 11. So it's only an 11 corner circuit this. 1:10 on average is the lap time. It's a very fast lap, but it's a very busy lap.
That's right, it's narrow as well, so Pablo about to get to the first corner on his one and only flying lap.
And he's the first man across the line. Who's the next man that's coming down to the line to take... we've got Schultz is just crossing the line now, but he's a long way back. Actually, just looking on an outlap there, Philip Boak just bouncing across the curb at turn 4, so... It's only an outlap, so no damage done, but hopefully no damage to the car either.
I didn't catch up with what happened to him in the end of the race. Do you remember where he finished in the first race there, Nether?
I think Boak actually was a retiree. He pulled off the circuit with some smoke coming out of the back of the car,
yes.
just as that battle was going on between Devonish and Brock Harvey over the podium positions, which ultimately led to Brock Harvey ending up doing a pirouette through the back chicane, through the grass, a couple of laps from home.
Pablo just not quite using all the racetrack there, but a fairly clean lap as he exits the final corner to become the first man to set a lap in this qualifying session.
And he sets a 13.3, which is on par with most of the lap times that he's done. Just keep over the course of the evening, just keeping it clean. But that's his one and only lap. We've got David Kingshot. He's coming up to the end of the lap. Baker also coming up to the end of the lap behind him. So these guys will be the next ones to post on. Well, Schultz has posted a 1:11.1. Kingshot a 1:12.1. Baker a 1:12.1. Very, very close. Not much to breathe between Kingshot and Baker.
Devonish starting his lap as well.
Philip Boak on his way down the back straight through the left-hander at turn 5, so he'll be one of the next guys to set a time. Actually, no, the next guy to set a time will be Brian Walsh. He's just negotiating the final chicane, now making the left-hand turn onto the main straight, leaving plenty of room off that apex, so dropping a little bit of time, but he sets a 14.3.
That's only good enough for 5th.
Or just pulling over the side of the circuit, just as one of the guys was coming out of the pit lane. Philip Boak to the top with an 11.0.
Or half a tenth ahead of Schultz there, so...
this is going to be very, very tight.
There's still no one to dip into the 10s yet, so there is a lot more time out there from what we've seen from the top runners that we've had in the previous qualifying session.
Will Devonish is going to be the next man to set a time. He's on his way to turns 9 and 10 chicane. So we'll see his lap time shortly.
Oh, Kingshot set his time. He's
done it in lap. Set his time.
And here comes Devonish
through the line. He goes to the top. He's into the 10s.
Half a second. That's a serious time.
Matt Williams now. He's up to the chicane at turn 9 and 10. A beautifully liveried short shift motorsport car coming to the line now. What is his time? Only good enough for 4th, an 11.2. So we haven't got any more guys on. Oh, we've got some guys on
Johnny.
circuit. Sando's coming up to start his flying lap.
And so is Johnny.
Johnny crosses the line now, and so does Sando. So they're on their flying laps. The Great English has posted 2 laps according to our screen, but look like they're both installation laps.
Oh, okay. Hopefully
no flying laps. Look like they're just out laps.
Hopefully that doesn't disqualify him for. I don't know if it's manual policing of these rules or whether it's done by the server.
Aaron Thomas has the race winner from the previous race has just come out onto the circuit. He's just warming up at the southern end of the circuit. And
Hobbo and Harvey, some more heavy hitters coming out into the track as well. So we're starting to see some of the faster guys make their appearance.
Heath Dixon yet to make an appearance, surprisingly. Dwayne Davies is also another one. He's just coming out of the pits now.
Oh, Sando's in the wall and down at the chicane, and that's not good at all.
Well, that lap won't count. He's only set a time for 2 sectors. He hasn't completed the full lap, so he's still got an opportunity to set a lap time, but he was looking relatively good for to get up there in the positions, but just binned it at the end of Sector 2.
Does this expose a flaw in these rules? They've suggested that you only have 1 lap, but if they exit out to the pits on a lap that they've stuffed up, does that sort of fly in the face of what the rules are supposed to encourage, which is a quick qualifying session?
I would tend to agree, Stairs. It's I would say if you bin your lap, as long as
speaking of
Harvey going wide at the Dandenong Road corner, but as you if you stuff up your lap, it's no different to in the days of Formula 1. If you make a mistake, that's it. That was your attempt at a lap, and you should be done and fall into position wherever the rest of the lap times fall.
Very difficult to police because everyone's doing this at the same time, so they're not looking at someone else. And so unless it's done automatically on the server side, which in this case it isn't, because I'm looking at Brock Harvey there and it says he's got an allocation of 15 laps. So people may be taking some liberties with this rule by going back to the pits. If they stuff up their lap, I feel like they should start from the back of the grid.
I agree. Dwayne Davies just crossing the line now to start his flying lap. The only driver we yet to see an appearance of on circuit at all is Heath Dixon. What do you think his strategy might be there, Stez? Do you think he's hanging back to see what everybody is and just going to gun it? Or do you think he's going to just take a cautious lap and start from the rear of the grid?
I wouldn't put it past young Heath Dixon to decide to not qualify and just see what he can do. Pick him, and he's just watched the most attritional race that we've seen in given we've only seen 3 of these races, but it was an incredibly attritional race, and perhaps he would bank on a few people stuffing their races up and making those positions.
Sorry to cut across your Stairs. We've just seen Hobbo go to the top with a minute 10:199, so nearly half a second quicker. That's a very, very quick lap for a one-shot flyer.
And Harvey in 4th, so that's going to be very difficult to beat from Hobbo rather.
And I don't think the only one I could see getting close would have been Aaron Thomas, but he's popped up into 3rd place, last race winner. Greg Turra, having not been in the server for this second race, he was probably the nearest challenger, I think, to Hobbo's time. He was certainly in the last qualifying session, but he's not here to pose any threat.
That's right. So if we look to the server, we've just got the 4 guys on there who haven't set a lap. As you mentioned, Heath Dixon, Sando 75, who did crash, and he may well have just decided to start from the back after that crash during his one and only lap. Dwayne Davies and Grant English also without times.
Yes, and as we saw toward the end of the qualifying session last race, the track is very, very quiet at the minute. No cars out on the circuit whatsoever.
That's right. Well, they may well be conducting a vote, or they're not actually. I'm looking in the chat right now. They haven't elected to skip through to the race yet, but I'm sure they will be doing so very, very soon indeed.
Well, here we go. Heath Dixon's just made his way down the pit lane, so probably playing a little bit of possum, I think. Young Heath, he likes to get out there and get it done, but taking an alternate strategy this time.
Warming his tyres in the pit lane. Maybe he's getting a little bit more airtime for his sponsors. Flashing his lights
away there.
Hey, g'day Heathy, how are you?
He's putting on a show for the viewers here.
So once again, he's the man with all the eyes on, I can't remember who it was last time, Aaron Thomas I believe. No, was it Aaron Thomas? Whoever it was someone who was late to the server in the first qualifying session, but this time it's Heath Dixon who has the entire track to himself for
It was Aaron.
a little over a minute.
You're right. I believe you're right, it was Aaron Thomas in the last qualifying session who had the track to himself with about 4 minutes to go.
Wish I could rock up late everywhere and just win races without barely a lap of practice, so that would be very nice indeed.
It wouldn't be the first time that someone like, as you're saying, Stairs, that has done a feat like that, turned up no practice or very minimal practice and stuck it on the top of the podium positions.
Yes, well, Heath really... He's a recent champion in iRacing in Australia, I believe.
Yes, in the Porsche Series.
In the Porsche Series, so he knows these cars, but a little bit different. The small little differences between AMS and iRacing, so he's getting used to those.
How about we do an onboard with Heath Dixon here, Stairs, on this lap, seeing he's got the track to himself.
Yes, we're on board now, so let's have a look at Heath Dixon's take on Sandown. So down to third gear, through the corner, out onto the curb, very nice, clean. How's he going to attack the chicane? Down to second gear, doesn't attack it too much curb
here.
Yeah, so he's just had a little bit of a moment on the exit there. It won't cost him too much. A little bit wide of the apex onto the straight there, but 7/10 of a second down on Hobo. Where that'll slot him in, we wait and see. But up through the gears, got to keep that wheel nice and straight. Still flashing his lights, I believe. I thought I saw it reflecting off the Falcon. The Falcon sign there, and he's gained a little bit, nice and quick. He's carrying a lot of speed through the S's here, and hits that apex nicely. Doesn't take too much curb on the inside. Under the Jim Beam sign again, up through the gears, up through fourth, up to fifth, and braking in a straight line, using a fair bit more of the track than he normally does there, and attacking the curbs nicely. A little bit of a moment, hesitated to get on the throttle just a teensy bit as he approaches the line, and the time is
1 minute
1.2
11.4. So he's moved up into 8th place. On that onboard, I just noticed there was a couple of moments where he did have left a couple of apexes a little bit too wide, and used a couple of braking and gears that not commonly seen, especially down to Dandenong roads, usually a second gear corner, and he went all the way down to first, so maybe left a little bit more time on the table than could have been a better lap.
Maybe just taking it a bit easy, given he's only got one chance at it, so just wants to make sure he's got a decent qualifying position. I mean, he's 8th, so he's about mid-pack. If he'd binned it, he would have been starting way back down in about 16th or something.
All right, well, we're about to go into another race session here, Stairs, and the man on pole for the second race consecutively is Hobo. Now, he didn't feature on the podium positions in the last race. He just missed out, having to stop late. Do you think he's untouchable in this next race?
Well, so long as he doesn't pit, I really think the only thing that's stopping him from winning is himself, because he's got the pace. Now he's just got to get it together with his strategy and keep it out of the wall.
Indeed. And there's a couple of late withdrawals from this race. It looks like Grant English has withdrawn in the Vought Il Rennsport car, and Baker has also withdrawn from this race. So we're down to 14 runners. We've only got a couple of seconds. Oh, we've just lost Aaron Thomas as well.
Oh no, and he's a championship leader.
He's a championship leader, so something's going on here.
I wonder if that's a connection issue. Well, we've got the lights, so we'll find out if this is the real race, whether or not they restarted. But nonetheless, off they go, and Hobbo's got a good start from Devonish. Brock Harvey behind's got no one beside him, so he can just sort of tip it into turn one so long as no one fills that gap in the next few seconds, which he doesn't, still defending fresh air. And Hobbo's gone wide, and Devonish, we wait to see. He hasn't quite got enough, but Hobbo's very tight on the inside. Devonish is going to have a run on him. And we got Philip Boak in fourth place, Schultz in fourth. I think looks like Heath Dixon might have made up a position or two, and they're all through cleanly as so far as they're going through that corner side by side, but no major issues thus far.
No, you were right, Stairs. It was a very clean second start, or start to the second race. Heath Dixon, a little moment, I think, with Matt Williams, just bumped a little bit of doors on the way to turn one, and Matt Williams actually just gone past Heath Dixon into turn 5. and just taking out the cones and the signs as they come down to the Dandenong Road corner. But it's all still tidy, and nobody's run into anybody yet. As I say that,
Someone's
we had
gone deep, I think, yeah.
we had Dwayne, it might have been Dwayne Davies or Pablo, those two guys at the back. One of them ran wide at the exit Dandenong Road. Oh, geez, and Dwayne Davies taking liberties with the curbs. I think,
yeah, it looked like he was having a look down the inside. Maybe didn't expect Pablo to brake as early as he did, and it sort of was an unintentional overtaking manoeuvre that sort of just turned into an avoiding action over the curbs.
And geez, take a look at the gap that Brock Harvey has to catch to Hobbo. It's nearly 2 seconds after lap 1. This guy is on a mission.
It's all concertinaing as well there with Brock Harvey, Philip Boak and Will Devonish just nose to tail. And Shilton, it's just a train of cars. And it's the Brock Harvey train, choo woo woo woo, and Philip Boak is probably going to look down the inside. And there he goes, I say that. Excuse me, makes the move, and the car behind, as you say that, he sort of fainted back, and there's really nowhere through because it's not a very heavy braking zone, that corner, so it's...
and we've got the wall, it's Will Devonish!
No, that's going to be heavy contact with the wall.
The rejoin's a little bit chaotic.
Dixon had a bit of a moment trying to avoid him as he was hard on the brakes. We'll wait and see
and whether... Schultz is threatening Brock Harvey here, I think, for second place. He had him briefly, but Harvey had the high ground on the
we've got a car. Devonish is in the wall again. He's probably got damage sustained from that earlier crash, so that's probably going to be him out of the race. You can see him in the background recovering way back in... well, he's not on my timing screen anymore, so that's probably put pay to any good result he could get today.
Yeah, he's in the pit lane, and actual fact, he was speeding the pit lane and lost a rear wing. I think that's
from
the
bad
end
to worse.
Of his race.
Well, Harvey's got a few car lengths, as I say that. He was a bit of a champagne cork in the last lap or so, but Schultz has just dropped back a little bit, and he's got Philip Boak for company as they approach the part of the track where it all kicked off last time.
Yes, and they come down to the northern end of the circuit again. Can they keep it tidy through here this time? We've seen a few incidents down at this end of the circuit. It looks a bit better this lap. Everyone's making the corner, and at least for once.
Boakey's trying to have a look around the outside, and Schultz is just driving the most defensive wide Porsche you've ever seen, and that's all letting Brock Harvey try to get a few seconds up the road, who already has lost 8 seconds to Hobbo because he's been driving probably in his mirrors more than up ahead.
It's definitely giving Brock Harvey some breathing space. He's got about 3/4 of a second at the moment from Schultz and Boak, who are still squabbling over that last podium position. What was the concertinaed field has just sort of started to string out a little bit here, but they're all still fairly close, and there's still quite a long way to go in this race.
Williams looking down the inside of Boak, because it looks like Boak got boxed out behind Schultz, as they're all just sort of fanning out too wide in 2 lanes. It's got Johnny on Williams, and Boakey looks like he may well get the jobs on Schultz here.
Well, this is going to be treacherous coming up into turn 5. Has Johnny got the high ground, or is he going to yield? What's going to happen here? He's out on the marbles there.
Still side by side. And he's going to have the inside to the next corner as they just rub doors, and Kingshot and Dixon now behind there, just sort of looking at this thinking there's positions to be gained here.
These guys are still side by side here, Stairs. They're still side by side. They've been side by side for half a lap now.
It's just,
and they're giving
this is
each other room.
Yeah, this is fantastic racing. They're respecting each other, and it's just, I mean, it could obviously all end in tears, but this is why we watch this sort of thing, because they've been side by side for more than half a lap.
And Johnny looks like he's having another little look here at the inside at turn 1, but I think he thinks better of.
Oh,
jeez, that was very,
this contact, Kingshot completely outbraked himself, and it's absolute disaster. There's cars spinning out everywhere.
And Dixon sails through and gains 2 places in that little move, and Sando 75 also gains 2 places.
Williams is wide.
But what looked like, we've got is it Kingshot going off at turn 4? Yes, it is. He's gone
got
straight
damage now.
into the wall. He's got damage on the front of that car.
That thing's not turning, and that's what happened last week. He was the one who caused that massive accident in Simmons Plains in the last round, so I don't know, he maybe just missed his braking point or something, so it's not good, because he's caused this whole pack of cars to break up, and we were enjoying that battle.
We certainly were enjoying that battle, but the battle is certainly not over. Those guys are still close enough that it could get very, very interesting toward the end of this race. It just depends on how hard some of these guys are pushing. We can already see Hobbo's got a massive lead out in front after
some 10
5
seconds.
laps. It's nearly getting towards 10 seconds.
Yes, well, Dixon up into 6th place, so he's just sort of been keeping his nose clean and watching people go off ahead, which was the strategy we thought he may well have employed when we were talking about him in qualifying, and it seems to be working out for him so far.
We've got Johnny and Dwayne Davies just in an exchange on positions there. Johnny was on the inside and held 8th place from Dwayne Davies, so that's about the only battle that on track at the moment that wasn't looking anything like changing positions, but that's all settled down now as well, and it's all stations resumed and regular programming resumed as we watch just a train of cars just following each other around the circuit.
Pablo's made up a few car lengths on Walsh. He was under pressure through the first sector. They stretch out quite a bit. It's I mean, that amazing section in the previous lap where we saw them going side by side, that cannot be underestimated just how difficult it is to do that, because it's not a particularly wide circuit.
No, it takes an immense amount of skill and faith in your fellow driver to give each other room and make sure that one car's got the racing line and it give way to people on the inside or the outside. Truly a skill that doesn't happen overnight. It happens over many, many years of experience.
And many smashed keyboards and punched steering wheels on the way to getting that getting to that sort of level of skill. It's something that we all aspire to, and it always there's a lot of tears on the way, I think. Oh, a bit of lock up from Sandown in the background there.
In the case of your usual co-commentator, a bruised wrist, but we won't go too much into that detail.
Well, I won't detail that too much, because I myself have managed to have a few unnecessary injuries caused by anger at poor results. But Heath Dixon's really all over the back of Matt Williams now. We saw him earlier on in the first lap. It just looked like he was out of control in every corner. It's might be one of those things where you just wait it out and they'll take care of themselves.
Yes,
of course, you don't want to get caught up in their incident, though. That's the other thing.
That's the other thing. Well, there's quite a few less runners in this race compared to the last race, and no lapped runners either. So getting caught up in some incidents like we saw in the previous race doesn't look like it's going to occur at this race, as most of the field nicely strung out. No lap traffic to cause any problems whatsoever, Stairs.
That's right. Well, I can't believe there's a yellow flag somewhere for something.
It's down at turn 4.
Oh, it's Boak. Yes, Philip Boak. He's gone off on the inside.
There was some tyre tracks on the exit of turn 4, so it looks like he just got himself a little bit out of shape. We didn't quite catch it, but there's closing speed here with Johnny, who's coming up behind him.
They're out of sync here because Boak's recovering, and he's got up to top speed maybe just in time, and they're going side by side, and Boak don't know how damaged his car is, so this is an absolute leap of faith going through that corner when you don't actually know how it's handling after the crash that you've just had.
Yeah, I think the sensible thing there may have been to yield, but obviously Boak had some faith in his car that
he's a racer. He's a
racer, and he just wants to get on with the job.
And he's rejoined about just under 5 seconds behind Heath Dixon, so that's another position that he has made up as we rejoin this battle here for 3rd, 4th and 5th, which seems to be the closest battle on track after that chaos. And it just doesn't really seem to be... It looks like they're all just biding their time at this point as Williams goes a little bit wide and gives up a few car lengths to Schultz. Unless Dixon sees Schultz clear off in front, I don't see him doing any sort of kamikaze late braking moves until later on in the race.
We've lost Dwayne Davies in the last lap or two as well, Stairs. He's reporting as 1 lap down, but I can't actually... Or is he just in the pits? I can't tell from this angle. No, I think he's in the pits, actually. He's stopped, but
yeah, he might have damage.
What for? He's just sitting in the pits. He's actually not. There's no indicators to say he's having a stop at the moment, but he's just sitting there, which is really strange.
Sitting there having a cigarette, maybe watching this fantastic battle that we're.
Actually, no, he's on the move. He's on the move now.
He's on the move. He's on the move. All right, he's finished his cigarette. Off he goes. He's. That's not the Pirelli Marlboro car, is it? That's someone else. No, it is.
No, it is the Pirelli Marlboro car.
Right, so maybe sampling one of his sponsors' products, perhaps. So anyway,
he's very slow out of that pit exit as well. Maybe just waiting.
There's a lot of cars coming
past,
through.
But the last man Sandown, and actually probably also waiting for Pablo and Brian Walsh, who are just coming through now, and he'll rejoin at the back. He's some 2 laps down now.
Pablo's got about a 3-second gap to Walsh now, so he's just stretching that out a little bit.
It is. If we having a look down the field, Matt Williams has just lost a touch a little bit with Schultz, and now Dixon's applying the blowtorch just a little bit.
Yeah, I think now, I said this a lap ago, if Heath was going to see... Oh, it's a huge moment, he's held it together. Goodness gracious, that's what experience in the Walsh.
I wonder if he gave his...
Williams is in trouble here.
A love tap. So I think Dixon's probably going to surrender that position. I think there may have been a
little he's going to not take advantage of it because Williams was... I don't know if he locked it up because there's a lot of smoke coming out of the back of the car there, so he might have been locking it up. It just doesn't look like that car's handling properly. And this is allowed Boak to catch right back up. He was 5 seconds back a minute ago. And now...
just like cut to the shot, Heath Dixon looks like he may have left his braking just a touch too late and just gave Matt Williams a little bit of a rub coming through that back section of the circuit.
It was difficult to see. That sort of went on for a few corners as Boak...
Oh, we've got just a tank slapper just there for Philip Boak coming out of turn 1.
Saved it. These guys are remarkable in their ability to save these cars because often when these things... as I mentioned that Dixon has a moment, once they start spinning, they're very difficult to recover. But as they were coming through the S's, Heath was completely out of control, saved it, and I think in doing that he must have made contact with the back of Matt Williams' car.
It seems likely, but in actual fact, there's a bit of smoke coming off the back of Williams' car. He's actually cut that chicane, so he hasn't gained an advantage by doing so. He's just the status quo has just been maintained. But now Heath Dixon's got Philip Boak for company, and Johnny's slowly catching this gaggle of cars as well. So it could very well be a 4-way battle very, very shortly, and we're just over the halfway point. And
as you said last time, that means there's half the race to go. So just looking on board with Matt Williams, I was wondering whether he might be left or right hand down, but he doesn't seem to be. The wheel is straight as he's going down the straight. So I thought for a second he might have been carrying a bit of damage, but because he is locking that car up, I think there may be a bit of suspension damage. It's causing him to lock that inside every time he brakes, and this is causing everyone behind to bunch up, and Boak's just gone off in the background there and lost a place to Johnny. And it's all helping Schultz make a break for it up in 3rd place.
Yeah, I think any of these left-hand bends that Matt Williams is going through, it's definitely showing some sort of smoke signals coming out of the back of that car, so potentially some damage on that side of the car, as you said, Stairs. It's not happening for every turn, but certainly for some of the sharper right-hand bends, although there wasn't any smoke signals that time at the back of the car.
Well, let's see what we can see on this occasion. He may well be learning to drive a bit on the inside, yeah. I mean, it's the unloaded tyre, so it's not hugely crucial, but obviously all the contact patches that you use to brake are important. But better it'd be an unloaded tyre than a loaded tyre.
Well, the only other downside to an unloaded tyre too, Stairs, is if that tyre doesn't rotate enough, it ends up with a flat spot, and that can cause you some severe problems under braking and turning for some of these turns, and with some very, very heavy braking zones for the chicanes and the first few turns, you want to have all your tyres intact as much as you possibly can.
And it's an issue that if you're on your own and you're just sort of running your own race, you might well be able to deal with without too much trouble. But when you've got not just one, but 2 cars in your mirrors, and you're not sure whether they're going to try and overtake you down the outside or the inside, and you've got to be on the limit of braking every single time you're on the brakes, it makes it that much more difficult.
Indeed it does. We haven't probably been paying too much attention to what's going on out front, seeing there's some battles down the field.
Oh! Just that Bob J. T-Mark car completely out of control. Johnny, we hope he doesn't take anyone out because
he's driving on the ragged edge here. He can see the potential for jumping up into about fourth place here. The carrot's dangling there in front of him in the form of Heath Dixon, but it's still a little while to go, but he's been slowly catching up to the back of this train, and Schultz has actually just quietly snuck away and got himself a little gap here. So,
I wouldn't say the time is running out just yet, but if Heath does want to get onto the podium, he's got to try and think about making a move pretty soon, because that gap is going to be fairly difficult one to overhaul, and then once you catch up, you've still got to pass, and you've seen how difficult it is to pass a car that seems to be having issues, let alone one that doesn't have any at all.
That's right, and the longer he sits behind Matt Williams here, if the two of them aren't making ground on the car ahead, then he really needs to get past, because I'm not sure if he's biding his time there, Stairs. He looks like he's probably still got some speed in that car.
Oh, he's outbraked himself completely. I think he might have been taken, he might have just taken out by, surprised, sorry, was the words I'm looking for, by how early he was braking, and maybe Williams is just sort of trying to nurse that car, because every time he brakes he makes that flat spot worse.
That's the second time at that section of the circuit where he's had a little bit of trouble. And as we look at this, Dixon's got Johnny for company. Johnny, has he got a run on him here, or is he going to go late?
Looks like he does. I'd defend if I was Heathy, because you don't want to let this car pass. And he's going down the inside. There's no two ways about it. He wants this position. He's lost out here. Is he going to keep it stopped? He has, and he's actually...
Johnny keeps it very, very tidy.
Sort of left the door open there. I really think he should
have
defended that a little bit more. You know, that's a Dave Reynolds turn 8 thing. Turn 9 in Adelaide scenario there. It's... Team's going to be saying, hang on, you know, you had a chance of 4th and even 3rd, and now you're back down in 6th, so that's a bit disappointing. And he's actually losing ground on the straight to them.
I think Johnny's taken your advice that we were offering up to Heath Dixon before, that if he needed to get on with it...
Oh!
You say that Johnny's gone way
well, he's given the place back. Oh, and losing it in the background is Philip Boak, because he's trying to avoid the car recovering. It's the second time we've seen that happen tonight.
Boak's just going to have to watch his rejoin here, because Sando 75 is just coming up to here as well, but he'll maintain that place. And we've seen a couple of unsafe rejoins. But as I was saying before, Johnny went off the circuit. He was probably about to heed your advice we'd given to Heath Dixon, and that's that he had to get on with it if he wanted any hope of catching Schultz for the podium positions.
Well, he tried, and he'll probably have another chance if Heath continues to be stuck behind Matt Williams. But it's kind of live by the sword, die by the sword. It's interesting to see these different sort of strategies or these different approaches. You know, Heath driving not particularly defensively, just sort of running his own race and not really worried if someone passes him, and just sort of hoping others will make mistakes. And that's where he's, I mean, credit to him, that's how he's found himself in the position that he's in now. Whereas Johnny's, you know, driving aggressively and just trying to see if he can make something stick.
He is definitely driving aggressively, and he gets through turn 5, 6, 7 complex, this time unscathed, and without putting our hearts in our mouths once again. But there's still a handful of laps to go, and time is now starting to become of the essence. I think Schultz has got about a 4-second lead on Matt Williams between 3rd and 4th. I think that third position
that
on the
horse is
might
bolted.
be just done and dusted.
Yeah,
I think it's probably just done and dusted.
Although I've given people, here we go. Heath's got a run this time. Now, surely this is the best opportunity he's had. He knows that Matt Williams isn't very strong under brakes, but he's backed out of it, and probably going to have another look at the next straight. He's just sort of sizing him up. I reckon, you know, if that was 1 lap to go, he would have committed. But he's
just showing the nose there, I think, just to let him know, hey, I'm still here, and I'm watching you. You just putting the pressure on just to see if you can force him into a mistake, but none have been offered up so far.
I think Williams is slow on the throttle as well, because he's got to run this time. He's down the inside, but it's not a very big braking zone, so they can actually go through this corner.
Oh, and Heath has just locked it up as well, but he manages to gather it up without too much trouble. He's under pressure now.
Oh, we've just lost Johnny. Johnny's spun out, and he's in the wall, and he's trying to find a gear. He's found reverse, and that's a very dangerous place to do that on the racing line. Philip Boak trying to get through.
He probably should have just stayed there until they came through, but he wanted to get going, but that's a very, very unsafe rejoin of the circuit. But we managed to get away with it without incident. But
some of these people need to turn their mini-maps on, I think, because he's just reversed straight onto the racing line. He could have reversed a little bit further, and then Philip could have gone through in front of him. But anyway, thankfully they've got through it completely unscathed, and Johnny now is something that Dixon doesn't need to worry about at all, so now he can focus all his energies on getting past Matt Williams.
Absolutely. We haven't paid too much attention to what's going on out in front. It's actually a drive go-karting 1-2 at the moment. Hobbo's well clear.
20 seconds.
Brock Harvey in second, but he's just had a poor lap on that last lap. He's been doing 11s most of his lap times, very, very consistent, but his last one was a 13-1. And very quietly, Schultz has been pumping in those laps as well. So he's probably still thinking, maybe I might have a sniff here at second, but he needs a lot to go his way in order for that to eventuate.
Well, we've seen Brock make mistakes in the past. He is a driver who picks up results, but if he does make one little error, then that Schultz through into second place. And I wouldn't make any predictions at this late stage, even then.
Well, the gap is still coming down here, Stairs. Schultz is still pumping in those 111s. Harvey back into getting towards his original lap time. It's in the 112s. That gap's come down to about 3 and a bit seconds, but we've only got 2 laps left.
And on that occasion, Dixon nowhere near close enough to Williams to make a move into turn 1. So I think it's difficult because I think that's his best opportunity, because the braking zone into the next corner just doesn't seem to be good enough, because he kind of needs to be a bit further than alongside into that corner, and we know just how much speed Williams is comfortable taking into that corner. It's sort of the corner exit and the braking where he seems to be slow.
Johnny's just come into the pits now, so I'm assuming that's a damage-related pit stop.
And
the other Bob Jane T-Mart's car of Walsh has just been lapped by Hobbo. So Hobbo's on his final lap here. As I was saying before, at the start of this race, he was the one that we had thought, well, he's probably going to cakewalk this one away.
Williams has gone wide in that final corner. Will that give Heath Dixon the opportunity that he needs? He's just a couple of car lengths further back than he ideally wanted to be. This is going to be his last chance into turn 1 to make that move.
This is the last lap, so
and I don't think he's close enough. He's got a
kamikaze
dive. He's taking a look down the inside. There's smoke, and he's not quite. He's backed out of it a little bit. Yeah, he's done all right actually, because I thought that Williams was going wide as well, and they've both made it through. And Williams now with a couple of car lengths coming onto this main straight, I think, or into the back straight, I should say, is probably got enough to hold on to fourth. But goodness gracious, it's been a hell of a fight to watch as we rejoin Hobbo to cross the line to win the race, and that's the race that we all thought he had wrapped up in race 1, but he's got it in race 2.
He has got it in race 2. Brock Harvey just coming down to the final chicane now, so he's going to make this a drive go-karting 1-2, and it's been a 1-2 all race long. There's never been in any doubt. He's kept his nose clean. Both the drive go-karting cars have kept their race clean. And that's the first 1-2 I think we've seen from any team so far this series.
Yeah, my memory's not that flash on the race 1. I think that might have been, but apart from that, as we see Schultz cross the line for third, and Heath Dixon just giving us a flash of the lights there. He gave Matt Williams a hell of a fight for his 4th place, but he made him earn it.
Yeah, he did indeed make him earn it. He was with him all the way. And
got Philip Boak on. Sorry to cut across your Sando 75. He's probably not got enough road to go.
It's another close finish.
Half a tenth in that as well.
There's just under a tenth actually in the 6th and 7th place finishes. So we had one of those close finishes in the last race as well. But in fact, I just saw someone go off the end of the circuit there. I think it may have been Philip Boak. He went off with a flurry of sparks, but it's the end of the race, and he still gets the points.
Well, that was a tremendously entertaining race as we look at the results. So obviously Hobbo completely, sorry to Hobbo that we weren't able to give him much airtime for that race. So not great for drive go-karting, because we don't really see their livery much for the race, because they're all out on their own for the duration of it. But he ended up 24 seconds ahead of Brock Harvey in second place, who held on to that second despite Schultz closing in at a rapid rate of knots. And of course that battle with Matt Williams holding off Heath Dixon for pretty much the entire race.
Yes, that mid-pack battle through the entire race was fascinating to watch, especially some of the side-by-side action that we saw, Stairs. But unfortunately, the attrition rate struck again, and we lost a few guys early, but we also lost a few guys out of those middle battle packs to accidents or through some accidents that were no faults of their own.
That's right. With Aaron Thomas not... I mean, I don't know I have the maths of it because I'm not actually sure how their point system works, but with him not competing in that race and Hobbo winning it, that might mean that Hobbo takes over the lead of the championship. But we'll wait and see. Obviously, if you are watching this and you'll want to find out what the results of that are, check the Automobilista Australia Facebook page for all of that information. But for now, I think that's about all we've got for you here on this stream, isn't it, Nether?
I believe it is, and I think we're coming to you again with the Porsches in another 2 weeks, but I don't know what circuit we are going to in 2 weeks' time.
We'll find out, yes. There's plenty of other action coming up with Automobilista Australia. They've got V8s going on. There's a GT3 series planned, which I'm hoping to be able to drive in. But for now, that's I've been Stairs, and thank you very much for joining the stream.
Thank you very much for having us, guys, and adios until next time.
And my computer freezes. It's trying to quit the broadcast.
You managed to do it?
No, I'm still doing it.
Oh, there we go. Who have we got? Who's joined us? Is that Goof? No, it's Bagsy.
Fucking thing. I can't hear him if he's talking.
No, he's
there he is.
Did you pop in and out before, Bagsy?
No, I didn't.
Oh, someone else that popped in and out before. I don't know who it was.
I've got two cursors.
Uh-oh.
Neither of them are moving.
Has the screen stopped?
I think it's because it's trying to load all the cars into the server, so I can't. The shadow play, the shadow play overlay is frozen because it's trying to do all that.
I was going to say, can you lop the end off the stream, or does it continue to go?
I think you can edit it post race.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
But anyway.
Well, that was enlightening. I didn't mind that.
Yeah, good. I mean, we talked over each other a little bit, but you get used to that when you're talking to like another commentator. You start to get in sync.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
when you're in the,
it was a good race.
When you're in the box, like, or when you sort of, I know we saw you and Madbird sort of do. You guys have been doing it for a little while, but you're right. When you get in sync with somebody, it takes you a little while to get in sync and get going. Just excuse me for a minute.